Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about the employment training panel. I know we still have a few people logging on, but wanted to just go through a few quick introductions. First of all, I want to thank Keith Brama and the Propel Consulting Group for sponsoring today's webinar. And of course, I'll let Keith introduce himself in just a moment, but he is the president of that organization. Once AgSafe learned about the employment training panel and the opportunity for organizations to obtain funds to supplement their training programs, we were extremely excited. This program is not new. But we're just learning about it. And so we thought it was a great opportunity to share with the ag community about the employment training panel and the process of potentially accessing those funds. And so with us again, we have Keith Brama with Propel Consulting Group. We also have Gloria Bell. And Gloria Bell, and I have a short bio, so I think that's the best way to give perspective on her experience. She has 30 years of human resource and safety experience in the agriculture arena. And, you know, she has experience from working at Fresh Express to Driscoll's and a couple other industry related organizations. So a great tenure at those entities. She attended received her BS from Chapman University in organizational leadership and holds a certificate in human resources from Golden Gate University. Gloria is also degreed in labor law from the University of Guadalajara in Mexico. And she actually currently serves on the California Employment Training Panel and was appointed to the panel in 2013 by Governor Jerry Brown. Gloria is a past board member of AgSafe and a recipient of the Always Safe Award. Additionally, in the community, she served as a board member and chair of the Soledad Community Hospital District and trustee chair for the Soledad Unified School District. And of course, Gloria is currently the Executive Director of Human Resources for Martinelli and Company. And next, we also have Jason Lind from Zuckerman Family Farms. And Jason's going to be giving a perspective as a funding recipient. He is the Director of Produce Marketing. And just a little bit of background, Zuckerman Family Farms distributes over 1 million packages of fresh market potatoes. Fresh market potatoes are available July through October for shipping in local markets in California and throughout the United States, which I appreciate over here in Kentucky. And the Zuckerman sales office is located on McDonald Island, one of Zuckerman Family Farms' Delta locations. Their proximity to the packing shed and cold storage facility allows hand-on access to daily potato production and shipping activities. In addition to fresh market potato sales, Zuckerman also sells market seed potatoes produced for planting throughout the year. With its unique location in California, seed potatoes of many varieties are harvested from May through December, and the harvest dates provide seed potatoes of the proper psychological age available for planting each calendar month for locations around the world. So just to give a perspective of his experience in industry that he is with in agriculture. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Keith, who will give a quick intro as our sponsor, and then let him flip it over to Gloria Bell as she gives a perspective from the employment training panel.
Thanks, Natalie. And I, as the administrator, however you want to handle questions, I mean, when we get into the presentation, you just let me know. I'm fine with not hearing myself talk and answering questions. So just quickly, background on me and my firm. So I founded it back in 2015, based out of El Dorado Hills. California, obviously. We provide consulting services. We provide a couple of services. One is the Federal Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program, which is a hiring-based incentive, which we're not really focusing on today. But the other is the ETP, or the Employment Training Panel Program, which is, we're about 95% involved in ETP versus the other service. So we're intimately involved with that program on a daily, hourly basis. We've got a long track record. I've known and been working on the program much longer than 15, going back 10, 12 years at least. So I'm long track record of working with the staff, all the team members in the application units, through the fiscal unit, management from all the offices, including the Sacramento main office. In terms of client size, we have employers that have as few as 20, 25 employees. Our largest client has 20,000 employees. So we work with a wide range of companies. In terms of what industries they touch, obviously they touch ag, but I've worked with, in prior years, ETP was able to fund non-priority industry projects. So I've worked with CPA firms, marketing firms, all the way through ag, construction, manufacturing, etc. And today we've helped our clients secure awards for about $10 million since our inception. So we're happy with that. In terms of me, I, in this world anyways, got my start in Big Four public accounting. I was a manager in a state and local tax practice out of the Sacramento office. We did a lot of things there, sales tax studies, business tax credits, grant work, nexus studies, etc. Great experience, great start to my consulting career. But at that time I had smaller children and it was quite demanding with the travel schedule and whatnot. So I decided to go down to a smaller firm and a regional firm, which focused more on the enterprise zone. It's more of a tax credit firm. And I was the director there for 5 years or so. And I was responsible for about 90% of the company's revenue, overseeing that group. Back in 11, 12, 13, that program started winding down. So I was tasked with, what's next for our firm. So I've known this grant program for many years. So I brought that internally. I was the only one at the firm knew it. So I sold it, developed processes, procedures, and delivered the work. And then after doing that for a little bit, I decided to branch out on my own. So that's when 2015 hit, and I said, let's go do this on my own. And I got buyout from the family, and here we are. So in terms of my ag experience, so I have quite a bit of background. I'm not going to claim I'm a farmer. Jason can speak to that. I know Jason fairly well, but I know enough to be dangerous. My in-laws own some farming operations, which I've sat on the board for since '09. In the past 10 plus years, I've worked on a variety of ag businesses, a variety of projects all through the state, from operations up north more into, almonds, walnuts, and then all the way down south through Bakersfield. I've worked with small family-owned farming operations all the way up through the world's largest winery, where I was doing 3-4 days a week in Modesto. So pretty flexible there. And then currently we have ag clients in multiple crops, from sod potatoes, almonds, walnuts, etc. And then we also work with the food processing and the packaging companies that feed off of them as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Keith. You certainly have a diverse background and clearly works well with numbers, so will serve well for this process. So I appreciate that introduction. And now I'm going to turn it over to Gloria Bell. As we had mentioned, she does serve on the employment training panel. However, we definitely want to disclose that there's no endorsement of any particular entity or consulting firm. It was AgSafe's choice to ask Propel Consulting Group to join us. But by asking Gloria to participate as a friend of AgSafe, and of course, no endorsement of any entity or any application by her participation. So Gloria, thank you so much, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. First of all, AgSafe is a wonderful organization. I'm glad that they are having this type of information to the community and to separate businesses as well, because I really believe the Employment Training Panel is one of the best kept secrets in California. In regards to myself, excuse me, and my passion My parents were migrant field workers, so I traveled around through California and Arizona as a child, transferring to approximately 22 different schools throughout California and Arizona. Sometimes I was really lucky we went to Blythe on top of that. It's a joke. Anybody who's been to Blythe will know what I'm talking about. But I firmly believe in the worker, because the worker really is my mother, my father, my uncle, and my sister. And if we can look at it in that perspective, whether it comes to human resources, safety, any form of leadership, and look through that lens, you can see what we are up against or have the opportunity to change, and to change behaviors in management and in organizations. I've been fortunate. I've always worked in agriculture. I started off at a small winery, so I get that. I get the actual fieldwork piece because I grew up in that, but I also relocated with Fresh Express to Yuma, back and forth. And then I was fortunate enough to work for a wonderful company called Driscoll's. And I was able to do their international work and open up offices down in South America, including Santiago, Chile. Great organizations. And now I'm at Martinelli's, another great organization. Manufacturing, a little different because I'm used to the outdoors, but I have the orchards, so I'm still very fortunate. I'm glad to be part of this Zoom today. And I hope at the end of the training today, if you need my assistance or any type of coaching, counseling on receiving funds through the employment panel, I can be there as a resource for you. Because again, I think this is one of the best kept secrets in California. And I think we all are aware if we train our people and make our people successful, we're successful. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Gloria, for your service on the panel. And I know you'll probably provide additional perspective and comments through Keith's presentation should you see the opportunity. So Keith, if you're ready, you want to bring up your presentation and get into the meat of the employment training panel.
You got it. So I think you should all see the ETP logo there now. Yeah, Natalie?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm not going to go through and bore everybody with every minor detail. I just want to hit on some of the salient points, and of course take any questions if they come in. Overview of the program. So statewide, California only program, and it's really, like Gloria said there, to assist you to increase the skill set of your workers with the goal of keeping them employed and getting them higher wages through education and moving them up through the company. So I think that's really the goal of the program, and they're there to supplement your training program to get you there. Program's been around for quite a while. Gloria, as she said, the program's the best kept secret, which is, I hear that all the time, and people go, "Is this a new program?" No, it's been around since the '80s, but yeah, it's a great program, and I'm glad to share it with you. Data might be a little bit outdated here in terms of dollars, but they've doled out over $1 billion over the years, and these are 2-year performance-based agreements. So I say grant just to, I use that term a lot, but really it's not your traditional grant where they write you a check and go away and just do what you want with it. They enter into these agreements with you, and you set out to do things, and if you do those and follow the guidelines, you'll be reimbursed over time. The program is funded by you, the employer, through the payroll taxes every quarter. And then one of the great things about the program is you get to determine your own training needs. You develop your action plan, and you're involved in all aspects of the training. Obviously, there's parameters that you've got to abide by, but generally speaking, you're involved as the employer in every aspect. A little bit more on the history. Again, initially it was mandated to help unemployed workers move into the workforce. Over time, it opened up to increase the skill set of existing employees. And Gloria, you obviously override me if I'm wrong on any of this, but from what I see, most of the folks coming through the program being reimbursed are for your incumbent workforce, but also they encourage, obviously, job creation, which is, especially in these times, is a great thing and something they like to see. And just on the right side here, just briefly, point here is that back in the 80s and 90s, it was a sunsetted program, but in 2000, they passed a bill to make it permanent. So that's where we're at today, still a permanent program. Why it works, like I said, it's employer driven. So, you know, the state isn't necessarily telling you what to do and exactly how to do it. You're coming to them and saying, hey, would you like to support a program that we're doing? And it's your program, and you get to address, you know, who it is we want to train, what they need, and how we're going to get there. Program is great in that it's flexible. COVID is a perfect example. They've completely changed some of the things they're doing to help businesses survive during this time. So that's just, there's hundreds of examples. I can give you a program flexibility, but that's one of the main ones going on right now. And again, it's works because it's performance based. So you're always incented to follow through with what you set out to do. Some of the other reasons, obviously, you can believe that when you invest in your trainees, it's going to help you, the trainee and the business. You know, you're going to train them to be more efficient and do better at their job. So you become more profitable. They earn higher wages. Win-win. It's traditionally what I see is, you know, a lot of clients of mine, they have training in place, but maybe it's not really structured. It's more as needed. Well, this program seems to get people more into a structured program, and even if they're not participating in ETP down the road, they maintain that structured program. So that's another good reason for this program to exist. And then it should also reduce turnover, obviously. So if you're training your employees and they're going through the organization, getting promoted, and they're happy with their jobs, obviously they're less likely to leave you and cause you to have to replace them. Who qualifies? I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because we're all ag. So bottom line there is ag does qualify. And with COVID, there's a few different things going on, but the traditional ETP program that was pre-COVID, ag was a great opportunity there, and it still remains so today. Approved types of training and methods. So this is just some general info I threw down. There's a lot more you could put here, but just to give you an idea, I mean, you can be training, you know, your admin staff and computer skills, continuous improvement for field folks, manufacturing skills, management, commercial, OSHA 1030, literacy. So you can see it's a very diverse program. They do a good job of you know, supporting all types of training there. You can identify your own subject matter expert and do in-house training. You can use an outside vendor. The only thing on the outside vendor is obviously they prefer a California vendor since it's California tax dollars. But if there's a good business reason that business case you can make to the state, they may approve an outside vendor. They have 4 general types of training methods. The first 4 here in class: non-productive lab, productive lab, and video conferencing. Those are really when you have a live instructor and direct, you know, interaction. The last there is computer-based training, which is where your employee would just get on the computer, click through, take a test, and they're on their own. So the first 4 are paid at a higher rate in terms of reimbursement than the last one. Some additional training topics. Again, you could probably come up with hundreds of training topics, but generally just this slide is to demonstrate, you know, it's all over the place, from customer service to sales to forklift training to, you know, in your world, pesticide, irrigation, all of that fun stuff is reimbursable.
Keith, I would take an opportunity just to point out, and participants, I'm not trying to have a sales pitch today, but it has one of Keith's clients has actually used AgSafe to fund or proposed AgSafe as one of the opportunities for training. And we know that they were able to send some of their people to the annual conference and was reimbursed for that opportunity. So attending our conference was an option and was able to write that into their proposal.
Yeah, that's a great point, Natalie. One of the things I see a lot is that, you know, when you talk to clients out there, they say, well, it's so expensive to take my people off the line or do this. Well, and send them to an AgSafe or take the time away from work. Well, this program really helps support that, where you can afford a little bit more downtime so that you can go to AgSafe or conduct your own training there. So it's a good point. So then in the funding amounts and requirements, so the reimbursement rate is $20 to $23 per hour for those live instructor-led trainings that I mentioned. And then if they're the computer-based trainings, it's the $9 an hour. Obviously, if you're not having the instructor there, the thought process, I believe, is that the costs aren't as high. Single employer small business and single employer large business. There used to be a lot more differences between the two. They've kind of streamlined it a little bit. The trainees get a minimum of 8 hours up to 200. Now during COVID, they do have some COVID modifications that go down to 2 hours minimum. I didn't change the presentation because my hope is that the COVID changes are one day we'll get back to normal, but as of now it's at 2 hours, but it's 8 to 200 usually. And total funding is capped at $500,000 for single employers. Now, that being said, the $500,000 is driven off of head count, how many hours you need to train, how many people you need to train, and that type of thing. So I don't expect, and I don't typically see your standard single employer coming through and going, boom, $500,000. Now there's budget issues, there's all kinds of issues. So we like to come in at a reasonable number that we think you can achieve, especially for a first-time participant. It doesn't do you or me or the state any good if we come in and go, give me 500 grand and you only use 100. That doesn't work for anybody. So we come in and say, okay, I've dealt with a lot of companies like your size and your industry. You say you're going to do this, let's carve 20, 30%, 40%, whatever the number is off that and come in with a reasonable request so that you make the panel's happy, state's happy, we're happy. And then you can always go back for more money down the road. Trainer to trainee ratios. So I think the point here is that they just don't want to see auditoriums full of people. One trainer, 500 people. Okay, we get paid 500 for 500 hours. People aren't absorbing it as much. So for advanced technology specifically, it's 1 trainer to 10. Most of what you'll see is class lab 1 to 20, and quite a bit in ag, a productive lab of 1 trainer to a max of 3 people. For full reimbursements, each trainee must be full-time. So under standard rules, that's 35 hours a week. Currently for COVID, you can go down to 20, but standard rules, it's the employee has to be 35 hours a week, be retained for 90 days after training, and meet the ETP post-retention wage requirement, which you can include up to $2.50 an hour in health benefits in some cases. So what are those ranges? Pretty much in ag, you're going to be in these 2 boxes. So it depends on what county you're in. And I think I updated this for 2021 because I know that the data came out, so I think I did. But depending on what county, your existing employees will need to make 1912 to 21-ish. For net new hires, what they call job creation, they'll have to be in this bucket, 1565 to 1739. That being said, in a lot of cases in the ag business, they have what they call the high unemployment area. So those numbers go down to, again, varying by county, from 1434 to 1565 or 14 to 1739 for the job creation. That number might be a little high, but I'll revisit that. One of the things here, and this is another point of knowing what reality is and what the panel wants to see and how consultants play a part in this, is even though the rules say we're going down to 14, really we know what the panel is looking at nowadays. They're really encouraging higher wages. They want to fund good projects that pay a good wage to your people, which, I mean, I agree 100%, right? So when we write this and you say, okay, Keith, we got this bucket at 14, this at 15, this at 16, I'll know what the panel wants to see, how to present it, how to communicate that to staff, so we get something in front of them that people like Gloria can go, okay, I can buy off on. I'm not going to buy off at $12 an hour, but for your trainees and promotions going 15, 16 and above, that looks better to them these days. And then this bottom box doesn't really apply to you guys, but it just shows that if you're not in the higher priority industries for the state, the wage requirements go up. How do you get paid? So they have what they call progress payments. So payment 1 and 2 is a progress payment, essentially. Payment 3 is your final payment, where they look at all the retention facts. Again, COVID, the number for progress payment 1 is 25%. So they take a formula and say, all right, this person is going to cost the state $1,000. When they hit 8 hours of training, you get 25% of that person's allocation. COVID world, it's really 50% for 2 hours, but let's put that aside for now. And then payment 2, it's 50% when they finish their training. So you can see over time, so if somebody's at 8 hours, you get paid 25% of their estimated cost. Then they train for 100 hours, you say they're done. Okay, now we can invoice for 50% of that estimated cost. And then when you get to payment 3, that's where the state goes and says, okay, did they meet all those retention requirements? Are they full-time, or 90-day retention, wage rates, etc. Payments 1 and 2, those progress payments, are paid pretty quickly because the state's really not doing any background on that. They're just saying, all right, they've hit their benchmarks, good, let's cut a check, you get it in a couple weeks. Payment 3 takes your final payment on any individual or any project, takes a little bit longer because that's where their fiscal department's going back and looking, did they receive, you know, the proper wage rates, retain 90 days, etc. But that's generally the distribution, and again, it's all driven on you, the trainer. So if you're training like gangbusters out of the gate, you're going to see a ton of people get over that threshold, and you'll get money in quicker. If you're slowly going over time, it's going to take you a little longer. I have some that get money up front, and I have some that say, let's just wait until the end of the project and bill everything. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis on how the client wants to work.
Keith, can you remind us about the time frame of the proposals and when the training needs to take place?
So in terms of the approval process, or in terms of once you're approved?
Once you're approved.
Okay, so once you're approved, it's all prospective. So once you're approved, you start cranking as fast as you can. So you can start training. If your effective date is 12/15, boom, anything occurring between that and the next 21 months, you can claim, report, and becomes reimbursable. So we'll start accruing hours from that point. And like I said, some timing, right? I mean, especially in your world, ag, and that's another thing we try to do when we do ag projects is, especially if there's seasonality involved, you want to start the project at a certain time. You don't want to start the project when you're not going to have any employees for 6 months. So there's that variable there. So we consider that as well. These are just some examples of clients. I think the first one might be Jason's group, but they sod potatoes, grapes, etc. They're growers. They've done 2 proposals, trained about 300 folks in field, sales, admin, and received about $350,000 to support that. A vineyard management company, they have over 100 vineyards in the state, have about 250 trainees, and they were training anywhere from basic to advanced farming skills. They generated about $175,000. Grower, processor, distributor, they were doing hirings, and they had about 250 existing plus 10 new hires, and they did about $200,000. And then again, another one experiencing a lot of growth here, another grower, 250 employees for 115 grand. So just gives you an idea of how many people do we have, what are the dollars we're looking at. Again, though, it's driven by hours. I mean, some of my clients say, you know, we're capping out at 20 hours per person, and others say, no, we have to do 100 hours per person. So that'll give you an idea of the math there. And then the stages of obtaining the grant. So timing's a little crazy right now, as is everything else in life with COVID and budgets and all that fun stuff. But this is generally the process. So steps 1, 2, and 3 can be done fairly quickly. You register. It generates a link to an orientation. You click through, which just gives you a lot of information similar as we're looking at here. And then you file a pre-app where then they look at, okay, is this company even eligible? So I think we pretty much, in general, in ag, yes, you could be. And then they have quite a backlog right now, but once you get through that pre-app process and they pull your number, they'll contact you. The ETP analyst from one of the regional offices will contact you and say, hey, let's do a site visit. And pretty basic stuff. And I prepare my clients for all of this. You know, what are we going to talk about? What do I need to know? And all that fun stuff. But the analyst will just primarily go over, hey, here's the requirements of ETP. Here's what we're going to need from you. Can you make it happen? And then also they'll want to know a little bit more about the company, who you're training, what kind of topics you're doing, a little narrative of the business and the need. But again, I prepare you for all that. I attend all of these as a representative. Oh, and obviously a caveat now is this all used to be in person, but right now we're doing Zooms until further notice. And then once we have that site visit, we write the application for funding, and that's another area. Obviously, we do a lot of heavy lifting for you guys. So the applications can be 15, 20 pages long or more in some cases. We try to break it down pretty easy for you. You know, we have a ton of experience. We know what the panel needs to see and how to represent it. We know, you know, I know enough about ag to, you can give me a few sentences and I know exactly what you're talking about and can help the analysts extrapolate out the information they need. Once we write that, submit it, it goes through layers of review, goes all the way up to Gloria's group for panel approval. If you're under $200,000, the current cutoff is, if you're under $200,000 in request, it goes onto the consent calendar where they vote the consent calendar up or down. It can still be pulled out for questions, obviously, but it goes on the consent calendar. If you're over 200, you have to appear before Gloria's team and you present your project to them. And then once you get approval, hopefully, then your funded training begins. And so again, that goes back to my point of it's really not a retroactive project. It's all prospective in terms of what training you can claim. So the development, what's needed from the client. For my goal is to have you provide as little as you need, not do as much digging as we could. You know, I provide you templates and I narrow it down for you to say, okay, if you can provide us with X, Y, and Z, we can formulate a plan for you. Obviously, you generally provide the framework and you do the review of it, but we do most of the write-up and legwork for you. Some of the information we ask for is just a brief narrative, whether that be over a call or from that site visit, just some general information on occupations, wages, number of trainees, hours, etc. And I have bold there and underline estimates. Obviously, we want to be fairly sure of what we're doing, but the state does understand that this is a 2-year plan. So if we say we're going to hire or train 40 of occupation X and 30 of occupation Y and the numbers flip, they don't hold you to the exact numbers. They understand, they provide some flexibility in the agreements that help you along those lines. And again, we're also, if you give me numbers that say, I want $500,000, I'm going to back you off the ledge and we're going to come with a more reasonable number. So we don't make you dial in every number exactly right. And we work with the staff to help get us there as well. As I mentioned, another thing that's needed from you is that site visit. It's an hour or two of everybody's time. And then, as I mentioned, we meet or we write the application in a way that gets you the funding that we think is the right level for you, but then also write a project that the panel will appreciate and be able to get through. Then in terms, and then there's 2 big pieces of the program. One, obviously, is what we discussed is the application phase and getting the approval. Then the other big piece is the administrative process. So we obviously handle both pieces for you. Administratively, what we need from you, the client, is pretty basic information, employee information, so that we can enroll them into the ETP systems, which the only reason for that is, well, we have to track the training against somebody, so that's how we do it. We enroll them in the system, we report against those folks. Every once in a while, we'll need periodic new hire information or comp information, but that's fairly rare. And then the other big piece for you guys would be tracking it. So it's nothing more than your standard sign-in sheet. So I'm sure, Natalie, your group probably has some sort of mechanism like that. So a sign-in sheet, and I think the next slide will show you that. But and what we do is we customize those rosters for you. They provide a generic one that I found, especially in the larger organizations, if you have more hands, trainers touching it, it's harder to be compliant and results in us going back more and having to cross out things, redo things, or make them compliant. So what we'd like to do is customize them and get as narrow as possible so they're what the state needs and what makes it easy for you guys to do. So we get those approved, then you take them over, and I mean, it's as simple as you'll see on the next slide. Might as well go to it here. So I'm sorry, this is a Word doc I pasted in here, so it's a little small on my end, but essentially up top is just some static fields of trainer agreement number, contractor name, there's roster number, trainer date. You select, all right, here's my topic. I did business skills on this topic. Highlight it, check a box, they're good. Put the time in, what time did it start, what time did it end? Trainee name, signature, trainer name, signature, boom, you're done. So those come to us. We review those. Obviously, I help your training staff get up to speed on how to use them, but then I always encourage the employer, give me the first 2 or 3 right away so that I can give immediate feedback to you, so that if there are any errors or things that would not pass under audit, we can identify those immediately before we get 6 months into a project and you hand me 1,000 rosters or something like that. So these come over to us, and from there we take them, we do the data entry, we make sure they're all clean for you. And these are your audit documents for the state. So if you were ever to get audited, this is what they're going to want to see. I believe the rule just changed, and I don't want to put Gloria on the spot because a lot of rules are changing right now, but they previously required wet original signatures, but I believe they just waived that and said you can scan them in now.
Correct, because of COVID. We just don't want employees touching pens back and forth, and the activity of possibility, any form of additional exposure. So yes, we do take the administrator's word that the people got trained, because at the end of the day, that's what they want as well, is for the people to get trained. So yeah, no signature is required currently.
Right, and that's a good point, Gloria. That so there's some other. So they allowed, it went from wet signatures to scan signatures, or scan copies are okay, not scan signatures, but scan copies, and you could shred the originals. To COVID of the trainer can vouch for the trainee signature. There's a couple methods that they're requiring, but we can always work through those. But yeah, that's another good point, is the tracking even got simpler for everybody.
Totally, yeah.
And then in terms of what we do, in addition to the other items I touched on, we always provide a project status to our clients. Pretty simple, it's straightforward, but I think it's always a good visual for clients, is to give them one tab of project status, overall project status, which contains information like what's the term of my agreement, how many months do I have left to train, how many hours have I used, how many do I have left, etc. And then the other tab is the employee level. So, and I think that one's useful as well, because I've had clients before that look at it and go, hey, well, I see these people training, but I don't see these people, so I know this manager's not recording what they're doing. So it just gives us a way to stay on top of things at all times. We obviously deal with the progress payments and the final payments. So we'll get to a certain point and I'll say, hey, client, looks like you've got 50 people over 8 hours. If we bill now, you'll get X amount of dollars. And you say, go ahead, Keith, and then I'll generate that for you. And then same with the final payment. There's a bunch of data I have to manipulate, so to speak, and then do a bunch of data entry. So we handle all that for you on the back end. And then the project monitoring by ETP staff, we prepare you for that and are on site for that. And one key point about the monitoring by ETP staff, every time somebody hears that, they say, oh no, an audit. I go, no, this is not. They do have audits after the program's closed, like any tax audit could be, but really the ETP staff is there for us to make sure we're all successful. Once they set aside the money for you, they want you to train your employees. That's the whole goal. So this monitoring really is that. They'll come out, they'll sit in on a few minutes of a training session, they'll speak to a couple trainees to see how it's going, make sure it's all looking good, and then look at a couple of original rosters. Again, not a gotcha, not trying to claw back any funds. What they're trying to say is, hey, here's our rules. I just want to make sure you're on the right path, and if you're not, let's fix it. So it's another, and I always use the example of tax audits, right? You say, oh no, I'm getting a tax audit, everybody's miserable. Well, that's not the case with this program. And this one of the reasons I love working on this program is ETP is there to support us, make you successful, make the employees successful, make the whole program successful. And again, I attend all these meetings or Zoom all these meetings and prepare you for what's coming up and make sure your project's up to date. And then finally, just real briefly touch on this one. This is a great program and it's so great. I'm not sure how much availability it's going to have left, but I thought I would mention it. They've created this new COVID pilot program, which Ag qualifies for. And the program reimburses $2,000 per trainee up to $200,000 per employer if you recall an individual, create a net new hire, what they call job creation, and train them for 4 hours. So only 4 hours. So do the math. That's not a bad reimbursement right there. But I think the goal is, because of the unemployment rate, they really want to get people back to work and incent people to do that and keep them trained. But then the employee has to make $17.50 an hour, but you can include $2.50 in health benefits if they claim the health benefit. The employee does. They have to work 20 hours a week and be retained 90 days after training. So all the other rules that we went through before generally apply to this program, the application process, all the other fun stuff, but these are the differences here.
If I may say something about the COVID pilot program, it's a wonderful program, but it's an opportunity too for employers to have those 4 hours to train on COVID training, including especially around agricultural good manufacturing practices. So you really can tie those 4 hours pretty quickly to gain part of this program.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I see Natalie shaking her head. She probably has some programs that are very similar to that, but good point, Gloria, that's generally what this program is designed for, is to give them training around, and you guys know better than me, but social distancing and, you know, all the fun stuff we're all dealing with right now, and food, you know, processing world, that definitely makes a big difference. So thanks, Gloria. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, we do have a couple questions. Do you want to hit them now, or do you want to hit them?
Let me finish one more bullet, and then I'm done. And then I can put my pretty picture up as the next slide. I really want to see that one.
Great.
So then to be a net new hire under the COVID pilot, they look at the 2 years after the agreement, but then also 90 days prior to the agreement. So I have some that are going to get approved here in mid-December. So they'll look back to mid-September. Did you create jobs there? You can use those folks. And then the last thing is you can concurrently participate in the general program we discussed earlier and the pilot program. And then this is what we've all been waiting for here. There we go.
And I'd like, if I may add something real quick too. Thank you, Keith, for this. On slide 13, stages of obtaining the ETP grant. What I would strongly recommend to anyone who's interested is really logging on the website and becoming familiar with what we do. There's so many success stories on there, and any company who is participating in employment training can also put one of their success stories on the website as well. You can see the amazing different businesses, everything from a mom and pop grocery store that has 6 employees to a major employer, a huge agricultural company or manufacturing plant. So you can be small, you can be medium, you can be large. The nice thing about this program, it's really about upgrading your workers' skills and making them happy employees, because they're going to make more money basically. I also would like to just say something as well as a panel member, what we look at. Okay, so we do look at wages. Okay, we want higher wages for everyone. If someone comes to us and their wages, I don't know, $13.50, living in San Francisco, that doesn't work. How can you really live in San Francisco at that wages? So we really look at wages. We look at veterans. We also look at, see if you have a veterans program, or if you're trying to recruit within an agency within the veterans group. We also look at any type of inclusionary or adversity groups as women groups as well. So those are several of the factors, and several different board members have a different passion, so we all come to that in that degree. I go after benefits. I want to see if the employees are benefited, and how long it takes for them to become a permanent employee and benefited fully to the capacity. I like to also say, it's interesting, there's a saying, before we go to questions and answers, excuse me, there's a saying about happy cows make happy milk. It's kind of the same with employees without producing milk. Happy employees who prosper really are happy. It's part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We all want that. We all, at the end of the day, want a little money in our pocket. We want all our fingers to go home. We want to be able to play with our children. We want to send everyone home healthy and whole. And this is part of the program as well. So thank you.
Yeah, and if I just may piggyback on that a little bit, or something you said earlier reminded me on this stages of obtaining the grants. I just encourage, and again, with COVID going on and all those caveats, the program is becoming very popular for all the reasons Gloria is mentioning. So I encourage people, I know you're all busy and a lot of people are just winding up with their crops and processing and whatnot. You can always do steps 1, 2, and 3 fairly quickly and not worry about workload until we get down to steps 4 and 5, which will occur later down the road. So I always encourage people, hey, I know you're busy, but if you do want to take advantage, I would just go through the orientation and do your thing quickly, and then we can always work out the details as we get through, because as Gloria knows, I'm sure she hears it as a panel member, hey, I applied 6 months ago, where's my money? So
you're right, we've been hearing that lately as well. We don't meet every month. For example, we haven't met this month. We'll have a full agenda for next month, and,
right.
and we try to meet every month, but there's other factors that go behind that scene. But we do meet around 10 times a year. So if you're thinking, you're trying to get to the finish line and complete. You're right, we're extremely busy right now. Our staff is wonderful as well as ETP. And that's the other piece of this. Once you're assigned a regional representative, that person will work closely with you to make you successful. They have a passion for training. They get it. They're there for you, and please utilize them as much as possible as well.
Yeah, I agree 100% that they are, and that goes back to what I was discussing earlier with the flexibility, and they're there to help us be successful, not be an auditor and scare us away. So I agree 100%, Gloria.
Thank you.
So 2 quick questions before we turn it over to Jason and for him to give his perspective as a recipient. But the first one, if you can go back to the slide that outlines the wage minimums. The question was, is the employee required to make a minimum of $14.60 an hour for a business with less than 100 employees?
Yes, so that's the targeted, if they're in this high unemployment area. So I think we might be looking at this one. I don't see 1460. But let's assume we're in a high unemployment area. This would be, depending on your county, the lowest that the panel allows. But again, as Gloria and I mentioned, they're encouraging even higher numbers to come in front of the panel because they want, obviously, as Gloria's saying, that's what they want to see. So that's something we consider as well. And one thing to keep in mind on these wages is they're reviewed at the time when you submit for final payment. So, and Gloria, step in if I'm not articulating this properly, but if you have an employee right now at $15 and we want to show higher wages, or the panel wants to see higher wages, well, if you're progressing that person through training and by the time you're done with the program, they're going to be at $17.50, that's where the test occurs. So I think a wage progression would be, a reasonable thing there.
And that will probably be asked at the panel meeting, because the question is how fast and how quick can that person get to that level?
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing we prepare. We've been hearing those questions for many months now, more and more of, okay, walk us through your process of how does a person work from entry level to lead to super to manager, whatever the case is, and have those. I've actually just had a project that we gave a kind of a general synopsis of how those levels work, and then we had some real lives of, here's Jason, here's Keith, here's how they progressed, and so those are some of the things that could pop up on panel.
Great. And one quick question: are the reimbursement funds taxable?
Well, I get that question a lot. Gloria, do you have a response? I do have kind of a canned non-response.
Go ahead, and I'll give you my perspective.
So I've heard both ways. My personal family accountant, who I've known for many, many years, actually groomed me at my public accounting firm. He sent me links saying he does not believe it's taxable. I've heard somebody else say different, but at the end of the day, my response is, you need to go to your CPA and get their tax advice. I'm not a CPA, so I don't like to provide that advice. I'll always connect people with all my resources and they can make their own decisions, but I don't give tax advice.
And we say the same thing as well, Jason. You say the same thing. You do. We're good, but we're not that good. So we'll recommend that you seek outside counsel for that.
And a lighthearted comment from Natalie that my father recommends you call the IRS and keep asking the question until you get the answer you want. And then you document it, the name, the time, and who said it. But anyway, that's being facetious there. But I wanted to turn it over to Jason and let him give a perspective on being an applicant company and recipient of some of these funds.
Yeah, it's a program that is amazingly straightforward with Keith's help. you know, from start to finish. As Keith mentioned, we've finished one project and we're in the midst of our second. And the areas of training that are acceptable, the application process, the staff are all fantastic. You know, it does a lot of good things for our company. You know, it really requires us to take a step back and do have structure for trainings and look into the future of what things are up and coming. You know, we've implemented 2 different ERP systems for our businesses. You know, as many of us are trying to become more efficient and effective, you know, we've got new equipment, new software that we're implementing for quality control, and all of those things are you have the ability to train on. It also is a great opportunity, it has been for us, of meeting with a cross-section of people with masks on now, but really spending quality time with the employees and seeing who is excelling. And I think it's given us the ability to see, you know, who is a good candidate for moving forward over time. You know, some people do require a little extra time, but others really just are looking for more and more and more. And so it gives the managers of the company a platform to say, we have an opening here. What about this person? Because they've done so well in the various trainings. So I've been very pleased with the program, and it is a well-kept secret because I first learned of it about 18 months ago. And, you know, many of my colleagues in the ag industry, I talk to them about it and recommend it highly, because it is simple, but it's very effective, and it's been very good for our company.
Okay, Jason, we had a question. Since you've been involved with the program and your training, have you seen better employee retention because of the funds that you've utilized through ETP?
We have, and you know, I think again, part of that is we're a seasonal business. We do have a slower season, but you know, we're pretty busy at least 10 months out of the year. But again, what it does is those folks that have the ability and are training quickly have the ability to take on more and multiple trainings and jobs. I mean, it's really helped us identify those people and get them in a more challenging and better paying position. So it's been a good tool for that.
Excellent. Do you have just a word of advice for an organization that's looking at this for the very first time? What are some things to consider?
I would say ask questions. You know, sometimes we get preconceived notions of what's acceptable training, what isn't. You know, and I think asking questions, whether it be with somebody like Keith or to the panel, really have high communication and stay on top of the logs that we do. I have a copy of Keith's roster here. They are really straightforward and helpful. And, you know, thankfully for us with food safety and all the various requirements and paperwork that we need to do consistently, you know, it's almost embedded in us to be consistent with paperwork, but, you know, you really need to stay on top of that for sure.
Gloria, if you could speak to, I guess, a word of advice or give a pointer to anybody that's exploring the program, what would you say to first-time applicants?
I still go back going to the website and seeing what you're up against. You know, it sounds great, you know, but but we don't want anybody setting themselves up for failure or over-committing and under-delivering. Like Jason mentioned, you really have to over-communicate and understand the training program. One of the things we do find, the programs, the companies that have been unsuccessful really do not have a designated person or even a backup person to manage and administer the program. And don't get me wrong, I'm an HR professional and I love us HR people, but we're busy. So it usually takes someone else. And of course, leadership, because it does roll from the top. So having the executive team or the president of the company or really opening up the first meetings, being at certain meetings at the beginning and leading by example, really sets the stage for any type of training program. But again, the programs that have been unsuccessful are usually the people that are managing it are not fully committed to managing the program, don't understand it, or sometimes they just don't care. So that's when they fail. That's when they fail. So again, having that designated person is really important.
Great advice. Well, I would like to open it up to the participants. If you have any questions and you have a wonderful panel in front of you, somebody from representing the panel from the state, you have a very experienced consultant, and somebody that has applied for funds. So please use that chat box in this opportunity to learn more, and no question is too big or too small. I do see one more question that has come up. It says, how does it work if you need to hire an outside trainer?
You just do. Go ahead, Keith, you can answer. You just do. It's. I used to be a trainer, and you want a mix. In general, you want to outside, and you have to pay for that person. By the way, I don't know if that's the root of the question, but in any type of training, you want a combination of trainers. You want some in experienced people in the company, but having an outside trainer, if that's part of your program. But the part of that part of your program too is you will have to pay upfront for that trainer.
Yeah, and I just piggyback again, Gloria, on she's right in terms of paying for the trainer. So if it's a free training, you can't claim it. The only thing that we have to do, and it's really 1-2 pieces of little information that I have to do, is complete a form and submit it to our staff contact. But if it's a California trainer, it's hardly ever an issue. Again, the only time it'd be an issue is if you're using an out-of-state trainer. We have to get a week approval in advance on that.
¿Y luego te van a hacer reimburse? Or are you trying to save them? No, porque después va a ser más problema para que...
Sorry about that. Somebody accidentally got off mute. So Keith, for a point of clarification, when a company applies, do they have to know the specific training and trainer that they need to write in their proposal at that time?
No, I mean, in terms of the specific training, so you have a framework, obviously. You know you're going to train on fertilization, irrigation techniques, and you know it's going to be some of your field staff, field leads. So but no, you don't have to say Natalie's going to get 6 hours of this and 2 hours. It's not that granular in the application. Obviously you got to go through some of that in your mind as you're building up the application so we can come to a reasonable request. But no, it's not that granular. And then in terms of trainer, again, no, if okay, we're going to install this piece of equipment, this packaging equipment, you don't need to know upfront, am I going to have Jason train on it, or am I going to have Natalie train on it? But you're going to have to train on it, so you put it in the application, and then you can determine your trainer as you go through. And there's going to, and again, this goes to the flexibility of the program. I don't think I've worked on a single project in 10+ years that hasn't had something change in the life of the project where, well, I didn't know we were going to acquire this company a year and a half ago, and now we do. So then you go through a modification process with the state where we go into the system, we write up a modification justification, and likely if it's a reasonable request, it will be implemented into your program.
Great. A couple more that are coming in. Can trainers, like Daniel who's asking the question, be added to a trainer's list? So do you have, Keith, as a consultant, have a list of trainers that you provide for companies that are looking for opportunities?
Well, AgSafe always is number one, right? That's a good answer. But I mean, I don't have every resource in the book, but because of my experience, I have come across, quite a few folks doing different things. And then I also utilize folks like Jason and clients that I know have done things in the past, so I can direct them to, hey, here's a good good reference and you can talk to Jason or things like that. So yeah, definitely we have, amongst all of us in the industry have resources like that.
And then I think more of a point of the clarification when individuals are looking for outside trainers, is that included in the expenses from the training fund? So can you get reimbursed for paying that outside trainer?
No, well, you get reimbursed at the flat hourly rate for the employee. So they never look at, they don't care if you're paying a trainer $100 or $100,000, you're getting the $20 per hour. So Gloria could probably go into better than I can about how that formula is derived, but the short answer is no, they're not going to pay for the trainer expenses.
You're correct there, Keith. You can hire as many, the whole program can run on outside trainers if that's what you choose. But again, I prefer, personally, because I used to be a trainer, a mixture. I think my employees enjoy that as well.
And what I always tell people is, this program is really, it's for the employee, a 1A, right? But it's to supplement your training. It's not there to cover 100%. I don't see any that covers 100% of your costs, really. But so I try to get my clients in that frame of mind when they say, well, I'm paying $5,000 for this training. I go, well, that's fine, but you're going to get some of it offset and your training is going to benefit. That's kind of the model.
I think you said it well there. It is offsetting it. It's not, the program's not designed to pay for your total program. You should be doing some things on your own, like the mandatory requirements, sexual harassment, or there's certain stuff, and safety. You should, and that usually comes in the application process too. That we want to see that you are doing something. That this is not just all you want. It is a supplemental piece of your training program.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, we are coming up on the end of our time together. If, Keith, Jason, Gloria, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up our time together today?
I would, again, just like to reiterate that, for our company and how well it's worked, you sometimes think, is this too good to be true, or is it going to be in a tremendous amount of time and distraction from what our real business is? A lot of these things that we train on, and again, whether it be new computer systems, new equipment, we need to do the training anyway, and we need to do these things to improve and evolve our business. And this is a way to supplement the cost of doing that. So I'd like to recommend it for anybody that's on the fence. Hopefully this has tipped you into the direction of applying for it.
My only final comment would be, thanks so much to Jason. I know it's always nice to have a client who has juggling 100 balls to take a few minutes out of their day to share their experiences, and also to Gloria, same thing. I know as a person with a real job and a panel job on top of it, we all appreciate you carving out some time too, and Natalie for setting this up. Thank you.
No, and I thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And I also, as I said at the beginning, if I can help any company, or if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, this is a great secret that a lot of people don't know about. And I've seen the results. And again, if you look at our website, you'll see the results as well. But it's been interesting because we also take tours when we could visit in the old days of companies. So when I would travel, I would see what company out there was had received funds, and other board members do that as well. And it's really interesting to go into a company and seeing it in action and talking to the actual recipients, the employees who are receiving the training. It's pretty fantastic and powerful. So it's not as, what I also find is some people think it's very hard to apply. It's not. I tell you, once you get a relationship with your area representative, and if you have a consultant, it can be really smooth into the process. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Keith, especially for the sponsorship of today's webinar, making it possible and free for everyone to participate. And Gloria, giving your perspective and advice and opportunity to help folks exploring the program, and Jason for your perspective and experience as a recipient. I think we got a great picture of the employment training panel and the opportunity that is out there. On behalf of AgSafe, I encourage you to check this out. A shameless plug, look into, supplementing some of your training programs with AgSafe. Certainly we qualify as a trainer, check that out, but definitely not exclusive to us. So take advantage of these funds that you are paying for with your tax dollars. So take advantage and appreciate everyone's time and participation today. And with that, I'm going to leave the chat box open just in case there's any more questions. But with that, everyone have a wonderful and safe day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.